Chapter 1. The Battle of the Bow Tie. When the first light of morning filtered through the kitchen window of the Miller family, the smallest member of the household was already awake. Bouncy opened his eyes in his bed, which was actually a custom-made duplex miniature apartment on the bottom shelf of his father David's bookcase. His heart was beating like a tiny drum in his chest. Today was the day, the first day of school. Bouncy threw his quilt off in a single motion. As he jumped from his bed to the floor, a familiar thud echoed on the parquet. Bouncy stood before the mirror. He barely came up to the knee of the teddy bear sitting nearby. "You can do this, Bouncy," he said to himself. His voice was high-pitched but determined. "You are a Miller. Cracking walnuts is in your DNA. You can handle this bow tie." After 5 minutes of wrestling, Sarah walked into the room. Bouncy was staring at the mirror with the bow tie hopelessly tangled around his ear. Sarah giggled. "Come here, my handsome little boy," she said, her giant fingers gently fixing the tie. Then she scooped him up into the palm of her hand. For Bouncy, Mom's lap literally meant the palm of her hand. "Are you ready?" she asked. Bouncy stiffened his tail and curled it into a perfect S shape. In squirrel language, that meant always. Chapter 2. A Squirrel at the Breakfast Table. In the kitchen, his father David and his human sister Emily were having breakfast. Emily was in middle school, and this morning she was grumpy as usual. "Mom," Emily said, pouring milk into her cereal, "did you really enroll Bouncy in the elementary wing of my school? Everyone is going to call me Squirrel Sister." David lowered his newspaper. "Bouncy isn't just a squirrel, Emily. He's your brother. Besides, he scored 130 on the IQ test. He's a genius." Bouncy climbed up to his special high chair, a small box placed on top of a stool, a tiny plate with peanut butter toast, and a single peeled walnut awaited him. "Don't worry, Emily," said Bouncy. Although squirrel vocal cords weren't exactly designed for human speech, over the years he had developed a unique, chirpy, yet understandable way of talking. "I won't come near you at school. Our recess times are different anyway." Emily looked at her brother's huge black eyes and his nose twitching with anxiety, and she softened. Okay, just watch out for your bag. Last time you got your tail caught in the zipper." When they stepped outside, the world seemed massive and loud to Bouncy. They got into the car, and Bouncy sat in his designated car seat, essentially a sponge-lined jewelry box fixed to the dashboard. He buckled his tiny seatbelt. Throughout the drive, he watched the world through the windshield, the trees, the power lines. His nature screamed, "Climb that!" But today, he was going to be a civilized student. Chapter 3. The new student in Class 1. See, the schoolyard was absolute chaos. Hundreds of children were shouting, running, and pushing each other. Bouncy was hiding on his mother's shoulder, tucked away in her hair. Looking down from this safe haven was both terrifying and fascinating. At the classroom door, their teacher, Mrs. Higgins, greeted them. Mrs. Higgins knew about Bouncy's situation, but seeing him in the flesh still caused a moment of shock. "Hello, Bouncy," she said, leaning down. "We've set up your desk right at the front, near the window. We even have a special ladder for you." Sarah placed Bouncy on his desk. "I'll pick you up after school," she said, stroking his head with her pinky finger before leaving. The class went silent. 20 pairs of eyes locked onto Bouncy. A kid from the back row shouted, "Teacher! There's a rat in the class!" The class giggled. Bouncy's fur stood on end. "I am not a rat," Bouncy said, standing up on his desk. "I am a squirrel. My name is Bouncy Miller, and I worked very hard to tie this bow tie this morning, so please show some respect." The class was shocked. Hearing a squirrel talk was even more surprising than hearing it wasn't a rat. Mrs. Higgins smiled. "Yes, children, Bouncy is your new classmate. Our differences are our strengths. Now, everyone open your science books." The first lesson was tough. Bouncy's paws were too small to hold a standard pencil. His dad had shaved down some special pencils for him, but writing was still exhausting. While trying to write, the cat sat on the mat. He got a bit overexcited and accidentally gnawed on the pencil. His desk mate, a boy with blonde hair and glasses named Leo, noticed. "Hey," Leo whispered, "do you want an eraser? Mine smells like hazelnuts." Bouncy lifted his nose and sniffed. It really did smell like hazelnuts. "Thanks," Bouncy said, "but the hazelnut smell might distract me. There is a high probability I might eat it." Leo struggled not to laugh. This was Bouncy's first step toward friendship. Chapter 4. The Cafeteria Crisis and the Great Climb. When the lunch bell rang, the real test began for Bouncy. The corridors were filled with the stomping feet of giants. To avoid getting squashed, he traveled along the wall, jumping over fire extinguishers to get to the cafeteria. Getting in line was impossible. No one could see him down there. Just as he was about to be stepped on, Leo gently picked him up by the scruff of his uniform and placed him on his shoulder. "You can come with me, Bouncy," Leo said. Bouncy smiled gratefully. They went out to the playground together. Everything was going well until a crying sound came from the other side of the yard. A group of kids had gathered under the ancient oak tree. A bully from the 4th grade had taken a first grader named Lily's favorite doll and thrown it onto the highest branch of the tree. The branch was way too high. Even the janitor couldn't reach it with a ladder. Lily was sobbing. The bully was smirking. "No one can get it down. It belongs to the birds now," he taunted. Bouncy, standing on Leo's shoulder, looked at the tree. Then he looked at the branch. That unstoppable instinct inside him roared to life. "Hold my bag, Leo," Bouncy said. He left his bag in Leo's hand and jumped to the ground, still wearing his stylish sweater. At first, no one noticed the brown furry missile. Bouncy latched onto the trunk of the oak tree. The feeling of his claws sinking into the bark was far from the helplessness he felt holding a pencil. This was his domain. Zip, zip! Bouncy shot up the tree like a rocket. The children stopped crying. Everyone looked up, watching the tiny shape spiraling up the trunk. What is that? It's Bouncy. I can't believe it. He's practically flying. The bully's smirk froze on his face. When Bouncy reached the very top, he wasn't even out of breath. The doll was caught on a thin branch. Bouncy walked to the very edge of the twig. The wind ruffled his whiskers. He grabbed the doll by its collar. It was a bit heavy, but Bouncy trained every morning by cracking walnuts. He looked down. Hundreds of kids were staring at him. Gripping the doll tightly in his mouth, he dragged it to a thicker branch and pushed it off in a controlled drop, aiming right for Leo. When the doll landed safely in Leo's arms, The applause that erupted in the yard was louder than the school bell. Bouncy made a cool, spiraling descent down the tree. When he hit the ground, Lily came running over. Bouncy quickly scurried up to Leo's shoulder to avoid the stampede. "Thank you, Bouncy! You're a hero!" Lily cried. The bully had disappeared into the crowd. The school had a new popular kid, Bouncy, the Flying Squirrel Student. Chapter 5. Homecoming and the Walnut Prize. The rest of the day passed like a dream. In math, he and Leo counted beans. Bouncy showed great willpower by not eating them. In art class, he dipped his tail in paint and created a modern masterpiece. When the final bell rang, his mother, Sarah, and sister Emily were waiting in the car. Bouncy climbed in, exhausted. "So, how was the first day?" Sarah asked. Before Bouncy could answer, Emily spoke up. "Mom, you won't believe it. The whole school is talking about Bouncy. He even taught the 4th graders a lesson at recess. My friends want Bouncy's autograph." Bouncy smiled proudly as he buckled his seatbelt. "It was easy," he yawned. "Just a little exercise." "But Mom." "Yes, sweetheart. Can I have extra walnuts instead of broccoli for dinner?" "I think I earned it today." Sarah looked at her son in the rearview mirror. He wasn't just a squirrel. He was the bravest, smallest, and furriest hero of the family. "The whole walnut jar is yours, Bouncy," his mother said. As the car headed home, Bouncy rested his head against the window. School could be a scary place, but with good friends by his side and the courage to climb, there was nothing he couldn't achieve. As his eyes closed, he dreamed that the giant pencils were actually trees waiting to be climbed.